Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Froelich Brothers Facilities Talk podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us. It's Amanda Hetrick from Forest Area Schools in Tionesta, Pennsylvania. She is a superintendent for the schools and she's someone that we're very excited to meet with. Amanda, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Well, thank you.
Good,
It's good to
good.
be here.
I'm happy to hear that. We're happy to have you. I know you're dealing with a lot of things in your seat at all times, especially when it's wrapping up and you got another good year under your belt. So tell me, how was your year, 2024 and 2025? How'd it go?
It was really fast. I mean, it seems like the longer you do this, the faster it gets. But it was overall a very good year. We're out of the COVID kinds of things, and um, we seem to have kind of turned the corner in terms of where we need to be with budget and all of those things. And so it was a good year. We know going into next year it's not going to be so good financially anyway, but um, this year things went well, and it was very, very positive. We were happy with the year.
That's fantastic, Amanda. What would you attribute to the year being a success other than having meeting your budget and some of those things that are you know not as pressing? How would you grade the overall student experience? Enrollment, was enrollment up? Is the facility in top-notch shape? Are all those things a part of it as well?
Some of them, our our enrollment was down. We had a juvenile program that was housed within the boundaries of our district that actually moved out of our district, and so our enrollment took quite a hit this year, in terms of things that we're reimbursed for and that sort of thing, which is why I'm a little concerned about what's to come. Um, so that it was probably 25 or 30 kids, which may not sound a lot like a lot, but the Forest Area School District serves right now about 325 students, and last year it was about 350. We're very small. We're 500 sub-square miles, and so we have a lot of territory to cover, and we have two school buildings, which is a challenge for us sometimes because they're 28 miles apart physically. It would be very difficult to move the students from one building to the other, just because of location and the fact that we're bisected by the Allegheny National Forest. But in general, that part was good. We had a new principal in one of the buildings who brought a lot of experience to us, and so that was part of the reason things went well. We didn't have a lot of new staff, and so people kind of knew what to do, and we were fully staffed, and so that made it positive here too.
Yeah.
Struggled, as many schools have in prior years with getting certified staff in every position.
hmm Okay. And keyword being certified is
Yes.
is something that's more challenging.
It is, especially in areas like math, science, world language.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on the principal. That sounds like a big win for the district.
We were very happy with our choice. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great job. With the distance being that great, is the biggest challenge truly like the infrastructure of being able to move the kids through buses and what have you? Is that the biggest issue?
It is a big issue. There are two big issues, I guess. First of all, just getting people the places that they need to go because we're so small. We're combined for sports, so every day I'm running an activity bus from one building to the other so that the kids can get together for practice. Um, we are quite a distance from our vocational schools, so our school day is much longer than many of our, surrounding districts because we can't count the time that the kids are transported from the school building to the vocational school as instructional time for those students. And the only other option would be to run separate transportation for them at the end of the day, which just isn't really feasible.
hmm
So, there are definitely some challenges, and it's a challenge because we're for such a small population maintaining two full-size facilities. I mean, they're physically smaller than many schools that you see, but it is the process of maintaining all of the systems and, the water and the parking lot and, all of those things that really do impact our budget and kind of add up to a lot of work that, maybe another place wouldn't have in quite the same way.
Yeah, I can see that. And picturing it with the fact that you're, geographically in a pretty difficult terrain, with the Allegheny Mountains. Is it impacting your technology usage? Being able to communicate the same with your systems from the two schools? Do they need separate hubs almost, or what you would call that, like completely separate entities that are communicating the digital aspects of the building? Or
We have a pretty talented tech guy who has worked really hard. Um, we're lucky to have him, and hopefully we'll have him for a few more years because he's approaching retirement age. But, he has really worked to develop that pretty seamlessly, and we've been, in good cooperation with our county commissioners, and they have valued that the school be connected and have that. So they helped us get fiber run to one of the buildings that wasn't there before. And that was a number of years ago now, but we are integrated from building to building. The hub is in one building. Power outages can be challenging. We
Mhm.
really hesitated several years ago about changing over to VoIP phones because we weren't sure about how that would work. But, it has been good. And we have the systems built into the backup generators now so that when the power goes out, we still have internet and we can still, talk to people and communicate because before that was not the case. And power outages, unfortunately, are pretty common.
And are you from the area, Amanda? Are you from Titusville or Pennsylvania, that region of Pennsylvania?
Um, I actually grew up in Harbor Creek outside of Erie. Um, but
Yeah.
it was pretty rural when I grew up there because we lived south of 90, which was the country kids. And so then I kind of migrated to Crawford, Forest, Warren counties, and I have served my whole career in rural schools, starting with Cambridge Springs High School and Pencrest School District, and then moving to the Titusville School District, and serving as a principal there, working in Warren County, and then finally here I am in Forest, which is in Tionesta, actually, which is about 20 miles from Titusville.
Okay, okay. That's great. That's excellent. Yeah, that's Erie to Titusville. Sorry, excuse me. I'm not able to pinpoint it exactly. Is it
About 40
due
miles.
directly east,
Titusville is south of Erie.
south of Erie? Okay,
Yeah. Mhm.
that's great.
Yeah, we're kind of, Tionesta, Titusville. We're sort of right in the sweet spot. It's, about an hour and a half to Pittsburgh. It's about an hour and a half or an hour, 45 minutes to Cleveland, about an hour and a half to Buffalo. So we're kind of in a good position.
Yeah, you certainly are. And how does that help you with your contractor base, the vendors and contractors you work with? Does it, because of where you're located, does it allow for more opportunity to work with some of the, more leading contractors in their industries?
Well, I mean, we have access to them, I suppose. I didn't really think about it in that way, but because we're so remote, it is very difficult to get somebody to serve us, or, sometimes to get them to come, we end up paying for a lot of travel time, in
Yeah.
addition to the service time. And so it is impactful in that way, but we do have choices and options. And so sometimes that's helpful. One of our buildings is probably more in the hub that would be served, via Erie and that range, and the other building is more east, and so that would be Clearfield, DuBois, over that way. And so it's surprising how many different vendors we end up dealing with because of the size of the district.
That is interesting. Yeah, it does definitely poses a challenge for the contractor because they want to serve you, but they do have to transport and get there port to port. And that time can sometimes be spent behind the windshield just as much as it is
Yes.
servicing your facilities.
Yeah.
So I can
No,
see
it can
that
be very
challenge.
challenging for everybody. And, we've tried really hard to try to set up systems using technology so that they can sit in Pittsburgh and, hop on our computer and say, "Oh, did you know that your heating system is
Yeah,
not doing what it's supposed to do?" And so things like that have been very beneficial to us.
So your maintenance staff, I imagine you rely pretty heavily on your maintenance staff
We
internally?
do. We do. They are wonderful and they do a real good job. We have a director of maintenance who is certified as a building operator. She's gone through all that coursework and has been very active, and now she's working on her level two, and so that has been really helpful to her in terms of just understanding how to analyze the systems and setting up preventative maintenance and the importance of supporting old systems in a way that you don't necessarily have to with new systems because our buildings are old and they've been here a long time.
Yeah, antiquated systems and upgrading them to the new systems, there's a lot involved. Absolutely. Take it one step at a time with your school district, or are you guys doing big overhauls?
There had been a lot of deferred maintenance when I got here. I've been superintendent 13 years. And when I started, nobody had really done anything with the buildings. And there was just kind of this attitude that they're probably going to close anyway. Why would we do anything with them? And, I spent a lot of time with the board talking to them about how in communities like ours that are so small, I mean, there are less than 7,000 people in all of Forest County. In these communities, that school building is the hub. And even if the time comes that there aren't students to support the schools, that building is still vital to community purposes. And so whether it becomes senior housing, whether it becomes something else, a home to community agencies or anything else, if you have a building that's in good condition and well cared for, that the community appreciates and wants to come to, then you have something of value. Whereas if you let them disintegrate into nothing, we have a fine example right in the district where we had a building that closed and ended up being sold at auction for $50. So, I don't want the district to be financially in that position.
No,
So we started working through and we did bids and looked at what a project would cost us and ended up chunking it over a series of years into smaller, more manageable chunks so that we could pay cash for portions and we could finance portions of the projects. And so we have upgraded all of our HVAC, all of our lighting. We've added solar to both buildings. Um, we've just done a lot of painting and general maintenance. Nobody had inspected the stage curtains or the bleachers or, the basketball hoops, any of those things. And so we've been slowly chipping away at it. And I feel like we're on a pretty good system and structure now, but it really took every minute of those 13 years.
that is impressive. That is really impressive, Amanda. Congratulations on that. Coming
Thank you.
into that situation, it must have been overwhelming.
Well, it was. That's not my
Yeah,
background at all. And I'm fortunate
no,
to have some good friends who knew what to do and were willing to come and help me kind of figure that out. And then we've connected with several vendors who have been helpful and supportive through the years. And that has made a big difference too, just having somebody talk to us about continuity and, what comes first, what comes second. We've redone bathrooms and plumbing and a lot of different things, and we've leveraged KISA. I don't know if you've ever talked about Guaranteed Energy Savings Act and the projects that you can do through that, but we've really done, I think, a pretty good job of leveraging the energy savings to help pay for the projects and the funding.
that's yeah, that opportunity being in the marketplace to take advantage of that, have the opportunity to take advantage of that. Sometimes things can get in the way of solar. In your rural setting, did you have to cut down trees and do all that to get the
Um,
amount of sun you needed?
we were fortunate, in the one building, we were able to put it right on the roof. And so
Nice.
that didn't require any trees. It doesn't really even look ugly because people don't really know it's there. So, that's really good. The other campus, we have about 42 acres of property, and it backs up to the national forest. And so we did have to clear some trees, but the size of the field we needed was not excessive. And so we did build a solar field, but you can't see it from the school building. and there's direct road access to it. So, people don't have to travel through here to go to that. So the company that we worked with really did a nice job of blending it into the environment and into our particular situation. And we're at this point generating way more power than we need to run both buildings, but we're fully powering both buildings. So we're pretty excited about that.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Again, congratulations. We've worked in developing those projects, and it takes the leadership person in your seat to allow for that to work out as well as it did. So as great as the vendor and the partners that were involved were, you can only do so much without your support, Amanda. And that's my direct experience with it is we can come up with the best ideas, but unless we're sitting down with a true leader like yourself, who's open-minded to what it's going to take in order to achieve the goals, that you have in mind, it takes time. It takes a lot of resources. It takes a lot of involvement from everyone that's going to have a hand in it, because you have one on the roof, you have one array in the field. There's a lot of things that are going to, get involved as far as the different trades. You have electricians, you have roofers, you have the engineering, you have, the cities, the infrastructure's involved, how it impacts nature, all these great things. But you did it, and you did it wildly successful. So congratulations, Amanda. That's impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, and as you say that, I mean, one of the things that worked to our benefit was that Forest County did actually have some guidance and regulations and guidelines, which was pretty forward thinking considering we're such a small community. So we were happy about that, and it did help to move things through. But it really did take a year longer than we had anticipated going
Mm.
into it because of the delays and the fact that nobody had really done that in our area. And so there were a lot of barriers to work around and things to think about that we certainly hadn't anticipated. So you're right, it was a labor of love, and it was a
Yeah.
project of persistence.
Yes, persistence is key in most areas in life, right? That's fascinating. That's great. So one thing that we really focus on with our clients is maintenance, and not just maintenance, the idea of preventative maintenance, right?
Mhm.
Is that something that you agree on as being as preventative as possible with the different aspects, the different assets of your building?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we've as we've fixed or replaced, the first thing we've said is, where's the preventative maintenance contract? Because, we know how much it costs now to fix all those things. And if you keep them in good repair, it does cost some money going along. And that was one of the issues, was that they had canceled a lot of those preventative maintenance contracts in an attempt to save money.
Mm.
When I got here, they were about $1 million in the hole. And so there was a long process to get us to stable financial ground, but they had made a lot of those cuts in the wrong places and not looked for the things that were actually going to save money in the long term. And so, it was a while. I mean, just getting people used to that and putting those back in place. But, again, I really did have a good mentor at my prior district who did the facilities and, spent a lot of time talking about the kinds of things that we needed to do. Of course, he also complained about my elementary teachers having rocking chairs in their classrooms. What do they need those for? He says. But but truly, he talked a lot about, just the importance of taking care of what you have. And that's, I guess, a common sense rule for life. So, yeah, every time we've upgraded something, we've done what's recommended in terms of preventative maintenance, and we've kept all those contracts current. And um, so far, knock on wood, all of our improvements have been good and have, continued to demonstrate benefits in terms of energy savings.
That's fantastic. Yeah, the power of information is something that we've differentiated ourselves with for our clients. We provide through a client portal, we provide all reporting from each visit, whether it be preventative maintenance visit, a roof leak visit, a large repair visit, what have you. We store everything in their own client client portal, and historically it's building information to help with future forecasts, for budgeting needs, and then just the sake of information of what the technician did while they were on your site, right? And that kind of lends to the idea in roofing in our industry specifically, out of sight, out of mind,
Hmm.
right? So it builds trust with our clients because you hear some really scary stories about how customers get taken advantage of, specifically with roofing, because of the fact you're not going to go on your roof, right?
Right.
So there's opportunity to, just kind of say whatever you want and send the bill, and, hopefully you can keep that going forever. But we take the complete opposite approach. Is that something you've been experiencing as well with the types of vendors you're working with?
Yeah, it has been pretty similar. We have access to a lot of information. I really do like the idea of the portal that we could always go back to. I mean, I'm filing it away myself. They send it, but the fact that there's a portal in one place really makes a lot of sense to me in terms of, as I'm finishing up the budget that has to be passed at the end of June. I've been rooting around looking for information because we actually have a roof that still needs to be done. That's my last big project that's on my list. And so we're right now it's holding fast and we still have a little warranty, but I know that we're working toward that. And so just thinking about how do we set aside money for that so that when the time comes, we're prepared to pay cash for that because we don't really want to take on more debt to just to do a roof. Having access to that information in the way that you describe would really make a difference in terms of knowing how to cost that out and exactly how much we're targeting in terms of, so that we're prepared down the road.
We're not taking monies from elsewhere. It's focused on that asset, and it's something that's going to continue to, help pay for future needs. So that's probably a larger project. Roofing just naturally has a way of being, square foot based, and schools naturally have a lot of square foot.
We do. And somehow it doesn't matter how many kids you have, we always expand to use all the square footage we have.
That's exactly right. You got to maximize your space, and you want
That's
to make
it.
sure that everything underneath that roof is safe, right?
That's right.
Man, it's really neat to work with schools for that, because it is about the kids. It's about their well-being. It's about their safety. It's about going to a building that their parents and family members feel safe about, and comfortable with them being in. And roofing has a big part in that, and we're proud of that. So a lot of our school districts that we work with quite a bit. We develop that type of trust with them because we're in it together. And that lends very well to your industry, where a lot of industries don't look at it that same way. So it's always very fulfilling, and all the great things about business that aren't just about money or transactions. It's about growing a relationship and building trust. And it sounds like you're someone that appreciates that as well.
Absolutely. It's so good when you have that kind of a relationship with your contractor and they will come in and actually talk to your kids and explain to them what they're doing and why they're doing it. And a lot of our students are very interested in the trades right now because they're concerned about college debt. We're not a very wealthy community, and that's not something that a lot of them feel like they have access to right now. And so learning about the trades has been very, very important to them. And so I'm sure that if you're sharing that information with all of the districts you work with, then, I imagine you're building your future workforce very well.
Yes, that is something that we believe we can have an impact on. Being a leader in your industry, any industry, if you're not looking at the future, then you're not a leader. It's just one of the basic concepts of leadership is trying to improve things for the future, making it better than when you had it. And
Absolutely.
in your school district, I think in some areas of the country kind of serves better to that. And we deal with a lot of schools that have that situation. Kids are more interested in the trades.
Hmm.
You know, I had a podcast this week with a Western Pennsylvania school district, and the facilities director talked about that, and he's also the head football coach. And he said a couple of his players turned down scholarships so they can get in the trades.
Hmm.
They'd rather just go directly into the trades and start earning earning money towards their career.
Yeah, our valedictorian this year is headed off to Penn College to get his associates in welding, and he was a vocational student here and did welding at the Venango Technology Center where we send our kids. And it, it's just a real change in thinking and the way that people look at the the idea that there's so much more to do. And I value education and I love it, and I went to school and my parents were teachers, but it is not the be all end all for everybody. And certainly there's a ton of education in any of the trades that is truly valuable, and they're very knowledgeable people. And so I've learned a lot from people in the trades, and I really have come to value that as just as much as a traditional school.
That's excellent. These are all great things to hear, especially directly from the leaders of these schools.
Hmm.
And that's fantastic, Amanda. So summertime starts,
Yes.
and you know, not as many kids in the building, but still some kids in the building, I imagine, correct?
Oh, starting Monday. They're all taking today off, but
For you, it's work as usual, right? Would you say
yeah,
as usual or a little different?
it's a little different because there's more office time. I try to spend time with the kids and time out in the buildings during the year as much as I can get away with. And that's one of the reasons I came to a small district so I could spend time with kids. But during the summer, it's a lot of wrapping up grants and doing reporting kinds of things in June. July is usually for vacation. In August, we're doing teacher induction and getting ready to go again. So it goes really fast, but um, it is busy. And it's surprising how much work there is to do in the summertime to people that don't really understand all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes.
Right. Yeah, we usually are tasked with some big jobs within the short time frame that summer offers because the liability is reduced without having a full school of kids. And so
Yeah.
we appreciate that, and we've been able to handle that. But that takes, like we've already alluded to, it takes that relationship because you have to start that conversation and development early enough to make that a reality.
Well, it does. And, there are things that happen a lot of times during that process where a contractor will call you and say, "Hey, I've got to shut the power down to the school on Tuesday. So what are you going to do for me?" Well, I guess I'm going to shut the power down on Tuesday, but I have to figure out what to do with all my people. So yeah, yeah, and that does require a good working relationship and just being able to have a little give and take. And I think that people sometimes expect contractors to come in and just make it happen. And you do, but it doesn't happen without a lot of people doing their part. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to, that building those relationships is key.
I agree 100%, Amanda. This has been fantastic, Amanda. Is there anything you think, one question I usually ask is what impact you felt was most important in this at this time of the year in this last school year? Other than a lot of the things that you've already pointed out, is there something else that you thought might have had a big impact on the school and the children?
I think that potentially, we deal a lot with mental health kinds of things and stressors that families have. um, and that does have a big impact on them. We have, worked to address that here, but it seems like more and more we're seeing challenges that we've not seen before. And so I would say that's one of the things that has had an impact this year. Um, just trying to figure out how to help children be ready to learn. And we do a lot of things here because we're so small and we don't have a lot of community services. We have the dentist come to the school and we provide dental services, and we have vision services, and there's 2 health clinics in the county. That's it, and they just are staffed by a PA typically. So we help with access to medical care to the best of our ability. And that includes mental health. And so we're licensed as outpatient clinics. We bring people here to see the kids because it takes a whole day typically to travel to a nearby place to receive services. So, I think just continuing to develop those kinds of things will have a big impact on the future success of our students. So we work
That's
hard to do
amazing.
that.
That's amazing.
You're
Everything
welcome.
we've discussed has been amazing, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate your openness and everything that you've done to get your school district to where it is today. Congratulations, Amanda.
Sure.
Thank you for coming on the show today. This episode I felt was very special. All the information, everything you were willing to share with us was very captivating information. So thanks for coming on. Tune in, check us out, all of our future episodes, and thanks for coming on the Froelich Brothers Facilities Talk podcast.